So flexibility and stability are two important terms to consider. Mobility is something thrown out there a lot these days, but really what I'm speaking at here is a lot of people are very scared to do static stretching and mobility type work because of how they feel it's going to rob their power, output, and things of that nature. And I get it, and there's legitimate research that this is founded upon, but it's really taken too far. First, I gotta say, you look at the Chinese weightlifters; they pretty much got like 2/3 of all the world records right now in weightlifting, and they're dominating the world. They're on pace to have the most medals of all time, surpassing Russia if they continue this rate, which I'm sure they will. Their lifters are all incredibly strong. They do huge squats, huge snatches, huge clean and jerks, huge partial lifts, you name it, huge deadlifts, snatch grip deadlifts. They're strong in every single fashion. They do so many different auxiliary exercises. But they're also the most flexible lifters I've ever seen. They can all do the splits. They do. You see countless pictures and videos of them doing all kinds of stretching. It's almost as if their stretching and mobility work is as important as their strength training work and their Olympic lifting work. So they're obviously not negatively influenced by this, and their ability to get in position and have supple, loose muscles, not to be a supple leopard necessarily, but it allows them the ability to manifest their power at best. Consider water, for example, and how water is fluid and elastic, sort of, or it can take on any sort of property that you put it in. But also consider the strength and power water can use. It can be a tsunami, it can become ice, and it can become very strong and rigid and tight at the same time. So just because it's such a fluid, limber sort of element, it can still change and become very rigid and strong and be very catastrophic. Consider that with muscle physiology and how it become very supple and loose, as well as very strong and rigid, and it can have both those qualities very equally in both directions. So there's no harm done there, and really when you look at Olympic lifting, if you're too tight and stiff and rigid in your tissues in order to do the lifts, for one, you're going to get injured, guaranteed, I promise you, and you can't do the lifts successfully through the full range of motion properly and coordinate and recruit in the right ranges of motion to perform the lift well, and you're likewise muffling your own power capabilities and power output. So you're not going to do yourself any favors that way. So that static stretching and things and mobility type work is going to allow you to do more effective strength training in Olympic lifting through proper ranges of motion and having the proper motor recruitment patterns to fire properly, and your net output or your net result is increased power and strength. So it's kind of a meathead argument. It's kind of silly unless your goal is to just be sort of a low bar squatter powerlifter or something, and you can't barely budge or bend over. That's fine. But you're probably setting yourself up to some pains and dings and orthopedic issues as life goes on. And I would argue for sure that you're probably going to end up feeling much better and be stronger and hit better positions if you did work on some of that mobility. But I also got to say too that I don't see too many foam rollers and lacrosse balls and say TheraBands and things like that in Chinese training halls. They're just stretching, nothing crazy, nothing fancy. But they're working on their positions and they're mobilizing things of that nature. So consider that how it will enhance power output as opposed to actually hurting it at the end of the day.